What's going on, everyone? About 69% of the S&P 500 closed down in the red today. There was actually a lot of action all across the board as Google actually had some pretty exciting news that sent that stock higher, but we're just seeing volatility increase in general right now, and we have some very important inflation data that is set to release tomorrow before open that'll definitely shake the markets up a bit. Hopefully today was a great day trading for you, but even if it wasn't, that's okay. In today's video, we're going to cover some of the top setups to keep on the radar for tomorrow, and there's a lot of exciting things on the schedule this week.
Yeah, there definitely is, Mike. And one of the best stocks today was Google, like you mentioned, up 5.59%. And I think that the future is here, honestly, with Google. You know, we're talking about quantum computing today, guys. So all of our computer scientists are going to be in the comments, I can tell. But Google is actually calling their new quantum computing technology Willow. So they developed a new chip, and this is supposed to have some pretty insane capability. I would say, Mike, one of the craziest things that I saw was that they performed a computation with Willow that would take a normal computer 10 septillion years to do, and Willow did it in 5 minutes only. So I feel like that, you know, quantum computing is definitely a huge thing and a step in the right direction, but I don't know what to make of it whenever I hear that some of these experts say that there's really no real world uses yet.
Yeah, that's the thing. So, like, from everything I've seen, you know, quantum computing has a lot of benefits, but I think we're still very early to this technology. But either way, to see Google have a breakthrough like they are, you know, showing off right now, it's definitely a good sign, and investors sure loved it as the stock popped up by over 5%, which is a lot for a company like Google. And Google's actually getting really close to its all-time high, right around that like $192 area, and it held pretty strong all day long. So I think this is one that'll definitely be worth keeping on the radar, not just for tomorrow, but even like these next couple weeks.
Yeah, I agree. That's going to be a huge resistance there coming up, Mike. And of course, that all-time high around that like 190, 192 mark. And then right after we break that, it's going to be contending with $200. So it's definitely going to be a fun next couple of weeks with Google, which has actually been lagging behind a little bit. You know, like we go look at some of its friends or competitors, we'll say Apple, Microsoft, and a couple others. They've been moving a lot better. Microsoft has been lagging too, of course. But, you know, whenever you go and you look at Apple, it's like, wow, Apple is still making new all-time highs up 0.41%. So we're seeing some pretty good moves out of tech, even on days where like the SPY is very lackluster.
Exactly. And, you know, some of the hottest stocks in the short term, as we all know, have been a lot of these like tech-related names. Tesla is definitely one that certainly comes to mind as it was flirting with that $400 level today, and it closed right around that area, and it had a decent day overall. But I know Tesla is on everyone's radar right now, not only because of how much it ran up over the past couple of weeks, but it is also extremely close to its own all-time high right around that 414 area.
Yeah, the all-time high on Tesla is going to be wild to see this one break, Mike. And if we do see a breakout there this week, it's going to be on the radar for sure. Traders have been looking for this all-time high on Tesla for a long time. And there's actually been a lot of analysts as Tesla was falling over the last couple of years that were kind of predicting that it wouldn't really get back up to its all-time high. So I want to hear everybody in the comments here give the analyst a big "I told you so," right? That's going to be a fun time in the comments section tonight. That is 100% for sure. And Mike, you know, I would say that today was pretty wild because we saw a lot of these hot stocks in the tech sector continue. Like you mentioned, Google, Tesla, Apple, a couple others, but there has been a lot of negativity lately. Nvidia has actually been pretty negative in the short term, and some of these other hot stocks like OKLO, SMR, and others are starting to pull back in a pretty decent way, even Coinbase.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting dynamics happening right now. Of course, we have some stocks continuing to move in a strong way, but as you pointed out, there are others that are, you know, definitely pulling back in a somewhat concerning way. Nvidia is one of these stocks over the past couple of days that I think has been especially weak, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing just by itself, especially considering how much Nvidia is still up in the grand scheme scheme of things. But when you look at NVIDIA, it definitely is seeing a decent amount of bearish pressure and price action come into play here. And it definitely does, drag the market down with it. As we look at NVIDIA right now, it's right around this like 135 area. What would you say are like the next like general key levels coming up?
Yeah, so definitely this 130 area, which is what I'm watching very, very closely here, below 135, like you mentioned. I think there's a pretty big support range right between like 130 and 135, so I'll definitely be watching for 130 for a potential breakdown. If we do start to see this support start to give out, I will be a lot more worried about NVIDIA starting to fall back down into its range around like, let's say, $110 to $120 and go down to test those supports. But really, we need to see this support range hold on NVIDIA or demand zone, whatever you want to call it, right? But if we do end up seeing that break this week, it's going to be a pretty bad breakdown, and it'll probably impact the overall market too.
Without a doubt, this level is going to be crucial for NVIDIA, and if it breaks through this, it will be a very concerning sign. So definitely keep that on the radar, but even some other like hot stocks in the short term like Palantir, even though they don't have as much of an influence on the S&P 500 as like, a company like NVIDIA, it's still important and it still has a very big impact on like short-term investor sentiment. And Palantir, pulled back around 2% today, which isn't like an enormous amount, but it also pulled back over 5% yesterday, and we are just seeing profit taking come into play here. Again, this isn't something that's the end of the world, especially considering how much Palantir is up over the past year. But I will say this, while a lot of money has been made, riding this giant bull wave on Palantir, if you're someone who does get concerned by this sort of price action, then you might want to consider adjusting your position because, a 5% and 2% pullback back to back is really nothing in like the grand scheme of things, and it is not it's very realistic to see the moves get even bigger and crazier as we head into the end of the year.
Yeah, Mike, and I'm glad that you mentioned that overall move there because Palantir has been pretty much straight up ever since the middle of August, and whenever you zoom out, it's even better, right? But I feel like there hasn't really been any big pullback since the beginning of August there, and whenever you look, it's up 276% from that earnings report there without any major pullback. So I definitely am with you here. I think that there could be a larger pullback coming in on Palantir at some point soon, and I think that it's something that's natural for the market, right? It's been riding the wave so much, and it's not something to necessarily be afraid of. It's more of something that we're going to need to embrace as traders. But Mike, I know that there's another stock today that was pretty hot, which is Tesla, right? Tesla's right around $400. If we start to see $400 give out tomorrow, I might become a little bit more bearish, but I will say I was pretty happy with how Tesla held the $400 mark today, and I really want to see a nice all-time high push here. That would be beautiful, especially as the SPY is pretty close to highs too, but I'm not sure that we're going to see it with all this downside price action lately, and I feel like that the crypto sector has been starting to pull back quite a bit too.
Yeah, we're seeing like a little bit of a rotation just with everything right now, and again, this is something that shouldn't be feared, but rather embraced. If you are someone who rode this giant bull wave up, you have to come to expect pullbacks too. If you can't handle the pullbacks, then either reduce your position sizing or consider just taking profits in general. But yeah, Bitcoin definitely slowed down a little bit today. It's still around that like $97,000 mark, so it's still very close to its all-time highs, but we did see some more profit taking out of some of the other like meme coins, we'll say. Ripple, which is XRP, pulled back a little bit today, but nothing too insane. But when you look at some of the more meme-like coins like Shiba Inu or Doge, that's when the stories get a little bit more concerning. But either way, we are just seeing general profit taking right now, so definitely keep that in mind. And I think this is coming at an especially what we'll call interesting time, as we have some pretty important data set to release tomorrow before the bell.
Yeah, that's going to be some huge data. So we have the CPI inflation data tomorrow, 1 hour before the market opens at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. And this is going to be an extremely important report. Now, there's a couple things going on here. With the core inflation rate year over year, they're looking for that to come in exactly the same as before at 3.3%. Now, the year over year rate, which doesn't exclude food and energy, it includes those. They're looking for that to pop up by 0.1%. So keep that in mind. Now, one thing that does does concern me, Mike, is that if we do see inflation start to pop up a little bit, it's going to be showing a little bit of a bullish trend here on inflation, which is not a good thing. As we can see, inflation from September to October popped up by 0.2%. So if we do start to see another pop out of inflation, so to say, it's not going to be the best reading.
Yeah, so this definitely is very important. Any sort of inflation-related metric or gauge is certainly worth keeping on the radar because the war against inflation has not been won just yet, and a lot of people are looking to what the Federal Reserve is going to do next with interest rates. Right now, there's currently like an 86% chance that we will see a 0.25% interest rate cut in the December FOMC meeting. Of course, this can change, but we are expected to see an interest rate cut, and then we are expected to see another 0.25% interest rate cut in March of next year. So definitely keep that in mind. But if we do see this inflation data that's set to report tomorrow come in hotter than expected, that will present a risk to interest rate cuts going forward. And it's something that the big man, Jerome Powell, certainly does not want to see. So long story short, with tomorrow's inflation data, if it comes in hotter or, just bigger than expectations, that is not a good sign, and that presents a lot of risk. So look out for this. This data will come out 1 hour before the market opens. So definitely keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah, definitely, Mike. And of course, there's a few earnings for tomorrow as well. We do have Macy's before the market opens and Adobe in after hours. And then Thursday, we do have Broadcom and Costco. So I really can't wait for Thursday. I think AVGO and COST are going to be some big reports there. But I'm definitely ready for that inflation data tomorrow. That's the main thing on the radar. And of course, we'll talk about some SPY levels in just a minute. But one stock that went pretty insane today that I know that we talk about at least fairly often was Walgreens, or WBA, and my gosh, this thing halted in the middle of the day, unhalted, and was up 17%.
I can't believe it, Tom. I seriously can't. Walgreens is the worst performing stock in the S&P 500, and just this year alone, they lost 2/3 of their value. Today was their biggest single-day gain since 1980, and this is happening on news that private equity is looking to potentially take Walgreens private, which honestly I think is probably what's best for the company at this point, given how horrible they are doing. As you look at WBA stock, it popped up in a very strong way, just like Tom said, and the stock is so beaten down and just so bad right now where, just there's like an off, like investors are off sides with it, basically. The sentiment is so overwhelmingly bearish where when you have this decent news come in where we don't even know if a deal will go through, and if it does go through, at what price, investors are bidding this up. Either way, Walgreens is moving in a strong way right now, and while the deal is certainly far from finalized, it definitely is like a somewhat good step in the right direction, depending on how you look at it. And this stock will move quite a bit going forward, especially in the short term, as more information is released with this potential takeover. But either way, it's definitely something that we haven't seen in a long time. I seriously couldn't believe it when I saw WBA up nearly 20% on the day.
Yeah, that is wild, and it's actually up 36% from that recent support touch, which happened right around the end of November, like November 20th to 21st. So it's definitely trending in the right direction, at least in the short term, right? And sometimes WBA on this overall downtrend has had some points where it would move up for a couple weeks and have some pretty good gains there. So I'm definitely going to keep it on the radar. And as these talks intensify a little bit more and as we get more information, I think that there could be some even better moves in store on this one.
Yeah, so either way, keep it close on watch. And besides that, Tom, let's get right to those SPY levels and analysis for tomorrow.
Yeah, so yesterday we talked about some key levels on SPY for today, which was 604 and 605. And I'll say this, that range gave out in a pretty nasty way at the end of day today, especially as 604 broke. I became pretty concerned around the end of day there. So for tomorrow, there's a few levels coming up around the end of day today. SPY bounced pretty close to 602.50 and 602. So I'm going to be watching for a breakdown below 602. And if we see that, I'm going to watch for a move towards the $600 to $601 support range. $600 is going to be a major support on the radar here. Of course, 601 has seen quite a bit of bounces over the past couple of weeks as well, but I think it's going to be just extremely important to make sure that we see that bounce off of 601 here. If we do not see that breakdown below there, it's going to be a time where the people who are shorting this might need to adapt and readjust in the short term. So just be ready for that over the next couple of days.
All right, sounds good, and I will definitely keep that in mind. As we look at the SPY price action just from the past couple days or so, we can also see that SPY has been continuously making lower highs, which is usually a bearish sign to see. So, like, the next, like, I guess you could say lower high will, probably be made somewhere around that, like, 604 to 604.50 area. So just keep that on watch for a potential, like, short-term peak. And another thing that's certainly worth keeping in mind is that I know we say this a decent amount, but it's just very important, and it's certainly worth re-emphasizing, is that, when we look at the heat map, not all stocks are created equally. And what's kind of crazy to think about is that the Magnificent Seven stocks are taking up a bigger and bigger portion of the market now than they basically have at, like, any other recent point in history. We can see the Mag 7 stocks now control nearly a third of the S&P 500's movement. So basically what that means is look extra closely at stocks like Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, and others, because those big tech stocks will really move the market more than like anything else.
Yeah, and that's crazy, Mike, to look at that chart of the Mag 7 as well, just to see how high it really has become over the past, like, 20 years or so. This is very insane. So, yeah, definitely keep your eyes on these big tech stocks, and some of them have been pretty negative in the short term. I would say it's been pretty mixed across the board with them, though. Like, we've seen Apple making new all-time highs, right? We're seeing some good positivity out of Google, but at the same time, Nvidia is pulling back quite a bit, and a lot of those other chip stocks are as well. So it's a weird time right now as the SPY is kind of stuck at these levels. So we'll have to see how this situation shakes out.
No doubt. All right, well, let's get right to some setups and predictions then. A stock that is definitely on my radar is ticker symbol SMH. Basically, this stock is technically an ETF with a bunch of chip stocks in it. So as we look at, some of this recent price action with Nvidia or AVGO or AMD or Qualcomm or just other chip-related names, it all is tied to just, the broader semiconductor industry as a whole. Ticker symbol SMH has been stuck in like this chop zone for a couple months now, and it's especially starting to show some weakness in the short term. Basically, this stock is on my bearish radar, not only for tomorrow, but even for like the next couple weeks. I really like the reward to risk playing this one to the downside right now, especially as we're starting to see more profit taking come into play in the market in general, but especially chip stocks. And one thing that I thought was very interesting today is if you look at ticker symbol MU, they actually landed a $6 billion federal grant to make chips in the US, and even that news sent them down by like almost 5% today.
Oh my gosh, that's terrible. And they even broke below $100 on that move today down as well. So yeah, definitely pretty brutal there, Mike. I will definitely be keeping SMH on the radar. A lot of these chip stocks are seeing a lot of weakness. And whenever you go to like the AMD daily chart, it's like, wow, just how weak that some of these have been is kind of mind-blowing. But with my next setup, I'm looking at Coinbase here to the downside in the short term. Now, Coinbase could end up seeing a bounce. I want to reiterate this. It is at a crucial support, which is $300. And it actually had a pretty good bounce, very close to there today. It technically broke a little bit. It ran down under there by about $1.50, but still, I would count that as a $300 bounce. If we start to see a bigger breakdown of this level tomorrow, I'm going to become increasingly more bearish on coin to the downside. And of course, keep your eyes on BTC as well. If we see this start to pull back, that could obviously accelerate the selling. But nonetheless, this is a major level, and you can see that on the Bookmap today, there was some massive buyers at 300, and the craziest part is that the market wiped those buyers out, and then buyers restacked at 300 and 298. So I'm going to really be watching for those two levels to break tomorrow. If we break that range, there should be some good downside opportunity.
All right, sounds great. Another stock that is definitely on the radar is Celsius, again, CELH. This stock is in the process of building some good bullish momentum. Its price action has been getting better and better in the short term, and the stock is still pretty oversold in the grand scheme of things. For those of you who watch the videos often, you know we've been talking about this stock quite a bit, especially in the short term. It tried to break out today, but just got rejected as the overall market was relatively weak. But it has some pretty strong resistance right around this like $31 and like 40-cent area to like $31.50. If we see a breakthrough that would be a great thing to see and would definitely strengthen like the bull case. So either way, Celsius is on my radar for a move higher. I would really like to see a breakthrough that resistance though.
Yeah, that's a pretty good resistance for tomorrow. If we see the breakout, I'll definitely be watching Celsius up. And one thing that's cool about Celsius is it doesn't necessarily have the best correlation to SPY, so it could have more of a mind of its own, I guess. And with my next setup, it definitely has more correlation to SPY than that one, which is Taiwan Semiconductors. You can see how strong the correlation is between this one and SPY at 0.97 there, but they were down 3.63% today. And whenever you go to the TSM daily chart, it's starting to turn over in a pretty good way at resistance. So I'm going to be watching for a breakdown tomorrow below $190. If we do see that breakdown, I will continue to watch TSM to the downside. It's kind of like Mike's SMH play. It's a downside move on chips.
All right, sounds good. Well, let's get right to the momentum plays then. And with the first one, we have Boeing to the upside.
Yeah, go ahead and watch for a break above $167. And Boeing actually had some pretty interesting news today, which was pretty good. They actually restarted their 737 MAX production after low deliveries recently. So that's definitely good to see there. And just watch Boeing for more good momentum up above 167. It seems like the tides are changing a little bit for them.
All righty. With the next one, we have IONQ to the downside.
Yeah, now this one has been running a ton in the short term. It's up quite a bit, but it's a little overextended. And if it breaks below support from today, right around 32.50, keep watching it to the downside.
All right, and then with the last one, we have Hood for both directions.
Robinhood, yeah, pretty bad drop today, down 5.5%. If they break under $37 even, then go ahead and keep watching Robinhood to the downside. If they break back above 39, then try to watch them back up.
All right, so we have the upside level for a potential move higher. We have the downside level for a potential move lower. This is for Robinhood. Don't forget about the downside level with IONQ and then the upside level with Boeing. Either way, these three stocks are on watch for potential momentum style plays tomorrow. If and only if they break through the levels listed, the stronger and more consistent these stocks move, the better the setups become. With volatile stocks like these ones, you have to be more than happy to adjust and flow with the trend changes. Do not get caught holding the bag. But either way, keep these stocks on watch for tomorrow. And let's jump right into today's $783,000 big money trade. And we are looking at ticker symbol MPC. So Marathon Petroleum, as I'm sure many of you know, is an oil-related stock. Basically looking at MPC, the big money bought the 155 strike calls that expire on February 21st of 2025. This is an interesting setup in the sense that these call options are pretty close to the money and they have a fair amount of time to them. So the big money is expecting like a decent move here. At the same time, we are still seeing a lot of what we'll call stuff going on in the Middle East where that does present a risk of oil prices rising, which would definitely help an oil company like MPC. Either way, we have been seeing a lot of conflicts go on in the Middle East for some time now, and oil prices have stayed reasonable, you can say. So definitely keep that in mind. But either way, this is a big money trade that, is has a decent amount of premium, just under $1 million. Calls are just out of the money, and there's a fair bit of time to them. So overall, I really like the reward to risk skew, but I wouldn't be surprised if this trade, took a little bit of time to play out, just given, the nature of this style setup and, how it's tied to the whole geopolitical disaster going on right now.
Yeah, and it does go out to February, and I'm kind of curious, Mike, heading into the end of the year here, and obviously the beginning of the year, I'm still curious, like, what happens with oil before Trump gets in, right? Because who knows what's gonna try, who knows who's gonna try to do something before he gets in, or etc. Right? There's a lot of ifs with the oil market, right? Especially with like OPEC and different institutions or conglomerates like that. So definitely keep that in mind with MPC. But I do like the setup. It's down around support, and oil has been holding support. I know people have been pretty upset, and traders have been upset in the short term that oil has not really been moving too much. It's been just chopping down here, but it's at least a good sign that it's been holding support and not necessarily breaking down below it.
No doubt. So either way, keep MPC close on watch. Again, these options do have out until February. But before we move on, we have to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Bird Dogger, and the Stocked Up trading floor. They had an awesome post today where they basically said, just wrapped up the first year in the trading floor with zero knowledge of investing or the stock market in general beforehand. Also renewed my sub for another year. Thank you, Mike, Tom, Mason, Hunter, Manny, and everyone else for all your help and hard work to make this trading family so great. My only regret is that I didn't find you guys sooner, and he posted 2 awesome screenshots to go along with that. So huge shout out to you, Bird Dogger. Keep up the great work going forward, and I think we're set for an amazing 2025. And huge shout out to you, and keep on rolling. But if you guys are new to the channel, consider obliterating that subscribe button to get our videos recommended to you more often. Every single day, we cover the most important news, information, setups, big money trades, and events to keep on your radar. Normally, all of our videos are around 20 to 25 minutes or less, but if there's a lot to cover, then we make sure to cover everything you have to know. So definitely keep that in mind. And besides that, do not forget about the inflation data 1 hour before market opens tomorrow. This will be important, and this will shake the market up. Besides that, thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market tomorrow.